Hello everyone, and welcome to another very nice game from the 2019 FIDE World Cup. It's round 3, Xiangyu versus Alexander Grischuk, and congratulations to everyone who figured out that the quote above the board is actually by Bobby Fischer, not by Mikhail Tal. So there you have it, now it's all nice and fixed. So without further ado, I thought this was the most exciting game of round 3, so let's just check it out. It's pretty later than usual than I upload, but I was busy, before. So without further ado, Shu opens with d4. Sorry about that. We have knight to f6 by Grischuk, c4, e6, and knight to c3. And here we don't transpose into the Queen's Gambit decline. First we go into the Nimzo Indian defense. We have bishop to b4, knight to f3, and now d5, transposing into the Ragozin defense. We have queen to a4 with check, knight to c6 blocking to defend the bishop on b4, e3, and we have castles by Grischuk. We have queen back to c2, now that the knight is no longer pinned, and b6, preparing to fianchetto the light square bishop, and bishop to d2. We have bishop to b7, and there is a game that reached this position where c captures on d5 was played, but Shu plays a3 here, and now it is already as of move 8 that we have a completely new game. Grischuk, of course, not eager to give up his bishop pair. He goes bishop back to d6, and now we have, once we trade in the center, c captures, e captures, and bishop to d3 now, putting pressure on h7. For the moment, it's not a target. We have a6, taking away the b5 square from white's pieces, and now knight to e2. We have knight to e7, preparing to bring this knight over to f5 at some point. We have bishop to c3, and now comes knight to e4 first. Attacking the bishop on c3 here, white trades, bishop captures on e4, d captures on e4, and now knight to g5, going after the e4 pawn here, and Grischuk continues with his plan. Knight finally comes to f5, sorry, not f5, knight comes to d5 now, seems to be what Grischuk preferred, going after the c3 bishop, and here knight captures on e4. So Shu grabs a pawn, but it's not really a great pawn. For example, it opens up the diagonal of Grischuk's light square bishop, and also allows queen to h4. And queen to h4 is a very annoying move. You have to constantly keep an eye on a lot of things. For example, you can't castle kingside, because you're getting checkmated. The bishop also attacks h2. For example, if you castle queenside, you get knight captures on e3, and you open up a double attack here against the knight. Also, the queen on c2 is under attack. You have to capture it, and now bishop captures on e4. Black just has a beautiful position here. So we have knight back to g3. And here, knight captures on c3. So Grischuk eliminated both of the bishops, and now he has a bishop pair against a knight pair. With knight captures on c3, and now winning back his pawn, bishop captures on g2. We have rook to g1, and now bishop to f3. And it's really, it's just insane how Grischuk allowed this g file to become semi-open. But on the other hand, he's not allowing the white king to go anywhere. So knight to f5 here, and this is just a beautiful idea. The queen is under attack, the bishop is under attack, the g7 pawn is under attack. So what do you play here? Well, Grischuk allows the capture on g7. It's not like you can defend it. We have queen captures on h2, and now rook captures on g7. Of course, this comes with check. We have king to h8, and now knight to e4, preparing this knight to come to f6, so you can have some pressure on h7. And now bishop to h5, a very important move. You have to play bishop to g6 to further protect the h7 pawn. Knight to f6 by Shu, and now comes bishop to g6. And here, white decided to castle queenside, and it's a really crazy position. Here I use this for the thumbnail as it's just awesome, this rook being placed on g7, but castling queenside here doesn't really work, and Grischuk had a winning move here, so feel free to pause the video and try to find this winning idea for Grischuk. Well, I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent player. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, just queen to h3 seems to be enough here, as there's a double attack on the knight here. you can't really defend it, because if you defend it, let's say you play e4, you just get bishop captures and you remove the defender of the rook here. So if you capture the bishop, you lose the rook on g7, and if you go rook dg1, you know, bring more rooks into the game, then you get queen h6 check, which will pick up the knight here. And after king to b1, let's say king b1, you're gonna capture on f6, and after e captures on f5, you can even play queen captures here. And now you have two rooks and the bishop against the queen. It's a completely winning game for black. But Grischuk decided to go bishop to e7 first. He put pressure on this knight here. He was probably expecting knight captures on e7. If knight captures on e7, then okay, you've eliminated the bishop, but you lose the queen on c2. So there's that. However, he missed one very important move from white, because it's now actually white who has a winning position. So once again, feel free to pause the video and try to find the winning idea for white in this position. Again, while I give you a couple of seconds. So for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent sacrificer of rooks. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, rook captures on h7 with check. This is a crazy line, and I don't think anyone can be blamed for missing this, because it's just a wonderful line. Bishop captures on h7, of course, knight captures on h7, and now queen captures on h7. And now you don't go after the bishop. Then you can trade queens and you don't have all that much, but what you can do, and what, well, obviously both of them missed, is queen to e4. This is the move you have to find if you find rook captures on h7, because now the threat of winning the piece remains. However, the real threat is rook to h1, and this just wins the queen and the game, and there's nothing to do. You have to play bishop d6, and after rook to h1, block with bishop to h2, but it doesn't help. Just queen to g2. And now if queen captures on f5, rook captures on h2, it's game over. And if rook to g8, now you just play queen captures on h2, white is up a piece, and of course in a completely winning position, there's nothing to do here. If you capture the queen, then it's just mate as the knight covers the g7 square. So really just an insane idea, this rook captures on h7, but it only works if you find queen to e4 followed by rook to h1. However, Shu did not find this. He played rook to c6, which comes with the idea that the knight here is defended, and also rook to h1 is now being threatened. But now Grischuk has another winning idea, and I'm not going to even ask you to pause the video, as it's the same idea that we've already had in the video. It's just bishop captures on f5. This is what Grischuk played. He removed the defender of the rook, and you can't really capture the bishop. White, of course, saw this. White continued to attack with rook d to g1, bishop back to g6, and now rook captures on g6. His idea is, okay, I'm now going to eliminate your pieces and win the queen, but black just has simply too much material. H captures on g6, and now rook to h7 check, forcing black to capture with the queen. Otherwise, if the queen was anywhere else except on the h file, it would be mate. So queen captures on h7, knight captures, king captures, and now you can't capture on c7. Otherwise, you get rook to c8 and you lose the queen. So here it's two rooks and the bishop against the queen, which is not even close for Shu to fight black's forces. But okay, king to d2, he's now ready to capture here, but now bishop to d6, just defending it with e4, and now rook 8 to d8. Of course, you cannot push e5 now, because bishop just captures, the rook and king occupy the same file. So king to e3, but now rook f to e8, again putting all of the pieces into the game, with f4, and now rook to e6. With ideas of just bishop captures on f4 check, picking up the queen. So we have e5, and now king to g7. You still cannot capture here. Queen to b7, ready to capture on a6, and here Grischuk plays c5, allowing, seemingly to capture on b6, but of course you cannot capture right away. White first played d5, pushes the rook away, rook to e7, and only now queen captures on b6. And it is a pretty tricky move. For example, if bishop to c7, just attacking the queen, then queen f6 check picks up the rook. And if you try to defend the rook, queen h8 is mate. The king has nowhere to go, so Grischuk here decided to give up the bishop for two very strong pawns in the center. He played bishop captures on e5 with f captures, and now rook captures with check. King to f3, and here rook e captures on d5 was played, and it was in this position that Xiangyu resigned the game, as there is nothing more to do here. You will, well, if you go after the a6 pawn, for example, black will just play rook d3 check. You don't want to go up the board to allow some mating patterns here. So you're going to go back, but now just rook d2 check, king e3, you pick up this pawn and you create a passed c pawn. And there's really not much white can do to stop it. Black will just start pushing it. If queen c4, for example, preparing a rook to c3, queen to c3 to win the rook here, you can just go rook e8 check, and once the king moves, you're gonna go f6, and you get this wonderful position where white actually is in no position to capture on c5. It's just wonderful. This is why I prolonged the game to show you how you can win it. But if, for example, white captures here, then we get this excellent position where you are more than welcome to pause the video and try to find the winning idea for black here, as it's just very, very educational and very nice. So, once again, for those of you who were able to do it, congratulations, you are an excellent solver of puzzles. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, rook to b3. You take away any squares from the white king, the pawns here do the same. The rook covers the e file, and you are preparing g5, which will be deadly. So whatever white plays here, let's say you can try one check, doesn't really help you, black will hide. Queen to f7, you go, for example, after the rook, but now you get it. g5 check, king f5, king g4 is no different. Now you get rook to e5 check, you force the king to capture here, or you go back, and then black will just continue going after you. If you capture, for example, rook f3 check, picks up the queen, and now you have a nice winning endgame where you are just up a rook. So, very exciting stuff, but after rook e captures on d5, Shu resigned the game, and an excellent victory for Alexander Grischuk with the black pieces. And the next game, of course, he gets the white pieces, so it is going to be easier for him and much harder for Shu to catch up. So yeah, that was my choice from round 3. If you have a choice of your own, use hashtag suggestion, and you know, we're gonna check it out, and if it's a nice game, of course, we're gonna show it. If you're interested about Dingliren versus Alireza Firoja, that game ended in a draw. It was a really intense fight, but I decided not to show it. Maybe tomorrow I'm gonna review it again. Maybe I will show it. It's hard to say, although I did just spoil the result a bit. So, but you guys don't mind about that, I know. But yeah, once again, I do hope you enjoyed it. I would like to thank James Dunn once again, Jose Palacio, and Luca Pete for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot, I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check two of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, continuing the coverage of the World Cup, checking up on your wonderful suggestions, and continuing what we usually do here. So thank you all, I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.